If someone asked me what 3 things are most important to learn for jazz guitar, triads would definitely be on that list. Triads are only 3 notes, but you can use them in so many ways, both comping and solos. And often people hear triads and then they just think about campfire chords and country music. But I'm gonna show you just how fantastic a tool they are when it comes to jazz. Let's start with some chords. Playing jazz chords is about taking a chord progression and turning it into exciting and beautiful harmony that fits the song. Therefore, you want to have flexible chords, and here triads are a fantastic option. Let's say that you have this: D minor 7, G7 and C major 7. For all of these chords, then if you take away the root, you get a triad. So D minor 7 becomes F major, G7 becomes B diminished, and C major 7 becomes an E minor triad. And the 3-note voicings are a lot easier to play, and you can do stuff like this. But before we get into using triads for soloing, you can actually take this a step further with something that I think is often a little bit overlooked. The basic triads that you just saw can do a lot of great things, but don't forget to also check out the open or spread triads, which are also easy to play, but gives you a different sound. The open triad version of an F major triad gives you these 3 inversions. So just in case you're not used to spread or open voice triads, let me just quickly explain what that is. Essentially, it's like the drop 2 version of a triad. So if you have an F major triad like this one, you find the second highest note, oh, in this case that's the A, and you take that down an octave. And the way I'm playing it here, then I'm actually playing it in a slightly different place on the neck, and you can of course do that in different ways. I find it more practical to play that here. And using this on a 2-5-1 sounds beautiful and is a really nice but more unusual way to use 3-note chords. And you can do this on the other inversions as well. And since it's only 3 notes, you can easily add some extra things to embellish the progression. But it's not all comping, and triads are solid for soloing as well. One of the most boring types of melodies is to just play scales in your solos. And both triads and arpeggios are great ways to fix this, so you want to practice your scales in diatonic triads. And like this, you have a connection between the scale and the triad, so using the same triads I used with the chords, F major, B diminished and E minor, you can create lines like this. But you don't want to forget to also check this out in other scales than the major scale. Diatonic triads in melodic minor are incredibly useful as well, and there is actually a nice trick to using them that I'll show you. Here are the triads for A flat melodic minor, which is what you need for a G7 altered chord. With this, you don't have to only play altered licks like this. And instead you can use a B augmented and an F diminished triad and actually make something that fits over other chords as well. The beauty of melodic minor is that if you have something that works for one chord, then it also works for the other chords in the scale. So for this G7 altered line, if we move it up a half step, we have a great line for an A minor 6. So knowing your diatonic triads and other scales will give you a lot of different sounds and melodies. Now you have the diatonic triads that you can use, but you're actually still missing something. Listen to Wes just using a D minor triad on a D minor chord. Here, Wes is using the second inversion of the D minor triad, and you want to start practicing both first and second inversion of the triads as well. Not only as exercises like this, but also work on making some lines, because they're incredibly strong melodies that you can use for a lot of nice things. Here's an example using the same D minor second inversion triad on a 2-5-1 in C major. Let's check out another way to work on creative melodies with triads. You want to take advantage of the fact that there are only 3 notes in a triad, and therefore they're also very flexible and easy to do things with. So instead of just playing up and down the triad all the time like this, then you also want to be able to turn them into something like this. In this lick, the triads are played in different patterns. For the F major on the D minor 7 you have, and for the B diminished on the G7. And on the C major 7 I'm using an E minor triad, but it's in the second inversion. Notice that I'm still just using the basic triads that I showed you in the beginning of the video, but now you can do a lot more with them. And it really pays off to work on taking some of these patterns through the diatonic triads and exercises, just to really get them into your ear and into your fingers. Here's an exercise using the melody that I used on the B diminished triad. Now that I'm editing the video, then I thought maybe it would be useful just to add a little bit more information about the triad patterns and how you come up with those. So the one that I'm demonstrating is of course a 4-note pattern. So the triad has 3 notes, but I'm repeating 1 note and turning it into a pattern with 4 notes. Now you can do that, but you can of course also create some with 3 notes. And you can go further and create 4 or 5 note patterns or 6 note patterns if you want to as well. So you could create something like, or you can create some 3-note patterns that are really nice that shift on top of the meter. So there are a lot of options to dig into. Triads are one of those things that will give you a lot to work with without having to spend months practicing, because it's so strong and it's so easy to play. But there are actually some skills that you want to start developing, even if they're difficult, simply because they will make you a better guitarist and keep making your life easier as you learn jazz.